Okay, in order to find the GCF between two numbers, you have to make a t-table for each one, such as this. 64 is 1 times 64, it's 2 times 32, it's 4 times 16, and it's 8 times 8. 88 is 1 times 88, 2 times 44, 4 times 22, and 8 times 11. The biggest number on both tables, 8 in this case, is your GCF. So your greatest common factor is the greatest number that they have in common. So it's 8 in this case. So the next two has 3 numbers, but you do it the same way. You make a table for 40, a table for 14, and a table for 21. Now the quickest way to do this is to pick the smallest number and make that table first. So 14 is 1 times 14, and it is 2 times 7. And then you can actually use this table to figure out whether or not the GCF is going to exist on the other tables. And here's how you do this. You start with the biggest number, 14, and you ask yourself, can 14 go into 40? No, it cannot. So 14 is not your GCF. Then you ask yourself, can 7 go into 40? It cannot go evenly into 40, so that's not it. Can 2 go into 40? Yes, but 2 does not go into 21. So it's got to go into all of them. So your GCF in this case is just 1. Okay, when you have variables or letters involved, it's really easy. GCF is the letter and the smallest exponent. So y squared is the greatest common factor. And it might seem a little bit deceiving because you're looking for the greatest common factor, but you choose the smallest exponent. It's just because you have 2 y's in each one of these. You don't have 3 y's and you don't have 4 y's. So the greatest common factor is y squared. So on the next one for your x's, the smallest exponent, 11, 2, and 8. The smallest one's a 2. And for your y values, a 3, 3, and 9. 3 is the smallest one. So your GCF is x squared, y cubed. The next one, they do not have a negative involved in both of them. So the negative's there to kind of trap you. It's not going to help you any. The factors of 6, 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Well, 6 doesn't go into 21, but 3 does. So for your numbers, 3 is the greatest common factors. And then for your letters, it's the smallest exponent. So 3x cubed is the answer to that one. This next one we have 18 and 12. Again, use the smallest number to make your t-chart. So 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. 12 doesn't go into 18. 6 goes into 18, so 6 is going to be the GCF of the numbers. For A, the smallest exponent is a 2. For my B, if there's no number, it's assumed to be a 1 as an exponent, so the smallest exponent is just 1B for the B. Notice how you do not have C in each one. Since C is not in each one, then C is not a common factor. So your greatest common factor is 6A squared B. On the next one, what you want to do is you want to look at the numbers and see what you can divide them by. What is the GCF? Well, between 2 and 30, 2 is the largest number that you can divide them by. So what you do is whatever you can take out or divide by, you put outside parentheses. Inside the parentheses are your leftovers. So I have a 2 and an x. I took the 2 out, so that's an x left over plus sign. And remember, it's division, so 30 divided by 2 is 15. So this one is finished. That's how you factor out the GCF from a polynomial. So on the next one, we can divide all these numbers by 9. We don't have any variables in common. So we have a 9 and an x. We took a 9 out, so that's an x left over minus sign. 45 divided by 9 is 5, and we didn't take the y out, so that's got a y with it, plus sign. 9 divided by 9 is 1. So 9 times the quantity x minus 5y plus 1 is the answer to that one. This next one we have for my a's, my smallest exponent is a 2. And for my b's, a smallest exponent is also a 2. So if I have 7 a's and I took 2 out, that's 5 left over. I have 4 b's, I took 2 out, so that's 2 left over. Then I have a minus sign. I have 7 a's, I took 2 out, so that's 5 left over. And I have, oops, sorry, I went to the wrong one. Let's go to this one. I have 3 a's, I took 2 out, so that's an a left over. I have 2 b's, but I took them out. Then I've got a plus sign. I have 2 a's, but I took them out. I have 5 b's, but I took 2 out, so that's 3 left over, so that's b cubed. Then I have a minus sign. Now, be careful here because it's not, you can't leave a negative sign just hanging, and it is division, so anything divided by itself is always equal to 1. So a squared b squared divided by a squared b squared is 1. So that's the answer to that one. On the next one, I look at all the numbers, the smallest number. If you need to make a t-chart, you can. So 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Well, 12 doesn't go into 16. 6 doesn't go into 16. 4 goes into 16, 4 goes into 20, and 4 goes into 28. So our GCF for this is 4. For the variables, I don't have an x in each one. The last term doesn't have an x, so I can't take any letters out. So I have 12 divided by 4 is 3, and I've got 8 x's there that I didn't touch, plus 16 divided by 4 is 4, and I've got 4 x's there that I didn't touch, minus 20 divided by 4 is 5, and I have 2 x's, plus 28 divided by 4 is 7, and that's the answer to that one. The next one is where parentheses are involved and you're taking the GCF out. The first thing you want to do is just like what we did before, what they have in common. Well, they have an x squared plus 2 in common, and then whatever they don't have in common, in other words, whatever's outside of the parentheses, that comes next. So y plus 7. So I've got x squared plus 2 times the quantity y plus 7. On the next one, I have a family of y plus 5 in common, and I have a z minus 3 that's outside the parentheses, and that one is finished. This one, I have a z squared minus 22. Now, if there's nothing in front of a parentheses, it's assumed to be a 1. So the next thing I'm going to write is r plus 1. And that has to go together. The next one, you want to take a negative. They're asking you to take a negative number out. So you're going to take a negative, and then you can also divide each of those by 3. So negative 3 and an x, and you took negative 3 out, so that's an x left over. Now this is where you got to be careful. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So negative 3 times the quantity x plus 2 is your answer on that one. This one, they ask you to take out a negative sign, so we're going to do that. They also have a 3 that you can divide by, and they also all have 5a, so that's a to the 5th. So negative 9 divided by negative 3 is a positive 3. And you have 7 a's, but you took 5 out, so that's 2 left over. And then 6 divided by negative 3 is a negative 2, and you have 6 a's, but you took 5 out, so that's 1 left over. And then negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a positive 1, and you took the 5 a's out. So there's your answer for that one. The next kind of factoring is by grouping, and that's where you make 2 sets of parentheses. Well, 1 set right here, just for group the first 2 numbers together. But it's kind of important that you don't cover up the sign there, because you're going to need that. So I'm just looking at what I have in parentheses, so I can take 2 x's out of there. So I have 3 x's, but I took 2 out, so that's 1 left over, plus a 5 and 2 x's, but I took the 2 x's out, so that's a 5 left over. Now whatever sign is after the parentheses you just made, you need to copy that down next. So it's a plus sign in this case. Then you look at what's not grouped. I can divide both of those numbers by 7. So 7x divided by 7 is just x. And 35 divided by 7 is a positive 5. Now at this point you know whether or not you're getting it right, because if whatever's in the parentheses is not the exact same thing, you've probably done something wrong and you need to check your work. So my answer is what they have in common, which is x plus 5, and then whatever's outside of the parentheses, x squared plus 7. Okay, so the same for this one. I make two sets of parentheses. Between 12 and 16, the biggest number I can factor out of that is a 4, and I can take two x's out. So 16 divided by 4 is 4, and I had 3 x's, but I took 2 out, so that's 1 left, minus sign. 12 divided by 4 is 3, and I have the 2 x's, but I took them out. You write down the sign that comes after the parentheses that you drew, a plus sign, and look at what's not grouped together. We can divide or factor those numbers by 3. So when you do that, 12x divided by 3, well, 12 divided by 3 is 4, and you have an x that you didn't take out. And then negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3. Again, I know I've got it right because what I have in my parentheses is the same thing. So that goes in the first part of my answer, and 4x squared plus 3 goes in the second part of my answer. Number 18. Okay, in my first set of parentheses, I can take out a 3, or I can divide those numbers by 3. So I have a 3 and a y. I took the 3 out, so that's a y left over. And then negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Write down the sign that came after the parentheses that you drew, which is a plus sign. And what's left over, I can take an x out of each one of those. So I have an x and a y. I took the x out. That's a y left over. I have a negative 2 and an x. I took the x out, so that's a negative 2 left over. So my answer is what they have in common, y minus 2, times what was outside of the parentheses, 3 plus x. Number 19. I can take a q out of those. There's no common number that I can divide them by. So I have a 7 and 2 q's. I took a q out. That gives me a 7 and 1 q left. Minus sign. I have a 9, a p, and a q. I took the q out, so that's a 9 and a p left. Bring down the term, the sign that came after the parentheses. Now, right here, 7q and 9p, there's nothing in common, so you have to put a 1. If you can't take out anything, you have to put a 1. So then you divide. Negative 7 divided by negative 1 is 7, and you've got a q. 9 divided by negative 1 is negative 9, and you have a p. So I know I've got it right because what's in parentheses is the same thing. So 7q minus 9p times what's outside of the parentheses, q minus 1, and I am finished.